whether it's in Iowa or if it's a pre-World War I battleship like Texas, they're all bespoke. I mean, it's just what it comes down to. You have your hull arrangements, you have your plating plans, but everyone, they're going to be subtle variations between the plans and what's there.
From NEPM Studio 61A aboard Battleship, Iowa, it's Scuttlebutt, the official podcast of the National Museum of the Surface Navy in affiliation with the Surface Navy Association's Battleship, Iowa chapter. And we are back with the second half of our conversation with Travis Davis, Vice President of Ship Operations for Battleship Texas. I'm Marianne Fengler, alongside Mike Getcher and Kyle Abbey, and let's get back into it.
I got to tell you, of course, we live on a fast battleship, 1943 commissioning first, and we're very familiar with the structure here, and just how it looks. In fact, many people say that when they go out to a current vessel, there's a lot of similarity. But you are so dramatically different and so profoundly interesting. It really is the coolest thing. I mean, you're basically a true dreadnought, or we're more of a super dreadnought. The construction's different, the layout's different, the armors, the guns, everything is so different around it. It's just a phenomenal place. I truly love Texas. It's a unique, wonderful vessel. And what's it like to live and work on that? It must be just, I know it's a challenge too, because we live and work on this thing, but you got to be in a different level here.
It really is. I mean, I kind of envy you guys up to a degree because you have three other sisters, right, that you can refer to if you've got a question. It's like, well, what is this? I think I sent you a question about something in one of your passageways a while back, and you're like, I'm not sure what that is. But there's a for us, we're one of a kind, so I have to be for doing any kind of preservation work or any kind of maintenance work that involves maybe one of our systems. We don't operate a lot of systems, particularly getting into like our fuel piping and things like that. There's a lot of archival work that has to happen to figure out what's going on, because if we don't have it, I can go look at like New York or Nevada or Oklahoma or even Arkansas and Pennsylvania, not Arkansas, but Arizona and Pennsylvania, because those are very similar hull designs and they're very similar layouts. Some of the armor and turrets and stuff are different. But the great thing about these ships is they're very iterative. But unfortunately, I don't have someone I can go who has one of those ships to go talk to.
Yeah, Nevada's 17,000 feet deep.
17,000 feet deep. And, poor Arizona, is scattered across Pearl Harbor. So, quite literally between Wipo Point and the Memorial. And so, so that means for me, I have to do a lot of archival research, finding photographs, drawings, oral histories help immensely from our veterans, but it's still a challenge, and it's even more of a challenge if we're trying to restore a space to how it was. Our veterans are are in their just like your World War II veterans, they're in their 90s, they're passing. Unfortunately, we're losing them, but. And the ship has been open for so long that a lot of the spaces have just been gutted. So we don't have a lot of good, primary source documents, or we have some primary source documents. But we don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge of to go back and restore those spaces to how they were, and it really is, it's really like putting together a jigsaw puzzle where you don't know entirely what the picture looks like. You have an idea, but it's a very blurry picture. And at the end of it, you'll have something something a little sharper, but it is really difficult. I joke with my boss all the time. I said, look, this is not a job; it's an adventure. If you remember that old Navy slogan. So, and I very much look at it this way because you never know what you're going to be doing. And again, dealing with something this older that's very dissimilar from other warships. I mean, quite honestly, the closest warship to Texas right now in existence versus, when we start talking about interior fittings and things like that, we bridge between Olympia, which is 1895 or 1898, and the fast battleships. I mean, North Carolina would be the earliest fast battleship that's closest to us. that's what we're living in between. That's a huge time range. I
It's a
mean,
massive range. Yeah.
Olympia is only 19 years older than we are. And of course, North Carolina is what,
She's 39 or
29
40.
years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
is. It's a challenge. It's funny.
it
Go ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead. I
Yeah.
was echoing you. Sorry.
Well, no. I was just thinking, when we first got the ship as well, we really didn't have much documentation. There was a little bit aboard the ship, but not a heck of a lot. And so I've always joked, and it's really kind of a serious joke. There's no book called Battleships for Dummies, but we can write one.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is it's a journey. You're diving deep into archives, or I'm poring over drawings. Unfortunately, I've been doing this most of my life, so it's just been some of it's easier than not. But still, it's a tremendous amount of work. It's wonderful. It's exciting as all get out for me.
Well, and I don't know, but I bet you that those engineers back in the early 1900s weren't thinking, or when people come around in 2008, they might want to rebuild this thing.
Yeah.
So they weren't thinking ahead that far. I'm thinking like we have a 68 Mustang at home, and yes, there are parts that you can find across the internet because people were so passionate about that, but that was 60 years ago. This is well over 100 years where people aren't thinking about, they'll put this on eBay in a few years. It's not around. And so I wonder, where do you even look for that kind of information? Because I know that they're the Naval Archives, but how good is the documentation from building a battleship?
It depends on what we're looking for, right? I will say this: every ship, whether it's an Iowa or if it's a pre-World War I battleship like Texas, they're all bespoke. I mean, it's just what it comes down to. You have your hull arrangements, you have your plating plans, but there are going to be subtle variations between the plans and what's there. Because when plates get laid out, they're going to be generally laid out right, but they're all going to be formed to what the shape's on the side. So you might have a curve that's a little bit different than what it shows on the body plans. You might have our measurement might be a little bit off from the table of offsets. So we actually found that issue and ran into that issue when we were rebuilding the blister tanks on the ship. So we were using we didn't have an actual set of table of offsets for the ship itself, so we're using the class table of offsets, which is what we had. We don't know if that was what was issued in 1927 for the blisters and the molded lines, or if that was or if there was one specifically for Texas and it just disappeared. So we were building off of those, and we modeled these our blister tanks we built into modules and then hung them on the ship. We hung them in 20-ton modules. So we start mating them up onto the ship, and they're not lining up at all the way that they should. And the curves are off. Yes, we probably spent about a week fitting the first two on, a lot of trimming, a lot of, field fit up, and it all became because of the table of offsets were off. So what we did is, in the meantime, we had started the process of going through it and laser scanning the hull. So we did that, plated a cloud model, and then built a whole new table of offsets on what's actually on the ship right now, when the ship was in dry dock.
Yeah. And
then as soon as we did that, everything, we built adjusted all the modules, and they just started flying up. We were hanging two modules basically every week and a half. I mean, it was amazing. Once we tweaked that, how fast things went. And but again, it's the lack of data and lack of the accurate data as well.
That's fun to research and do stuff like that. I just think it's also cool, in my personal opinion, to kind of combine different technologies at different eras. I have an AutoCAD drawing of an Iowa. It's all 2D right now, but it's incredibly helpful. I've built it over time, and it's what I use. And we don't need the detail that you do on the offsets, but certainly it's incredibly useful. It's just fun I love this research. Totally do.
So,
really cool stuff.
So Travis, I'm curious, what is either your favorite or the most unusual thing that you found that you weren't expecting in this whole process?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Because you always find you go in with an expectation, you get in there, you open the ship up, and you're like, oh, wait, there's this? What?
I have to say, well, I mean, I've had several over the years is doing projects, but I have to say with this dry docking project, the biggest thing that I found is that surprised me is when we dry docked the ship is how intact the 1989 hull coating was. That was the biggest surprise for me. And that's because, we've been fighting leaks and water flooding into the ship for, over a decade at that point. And, I expected the coating just to be completely gone, see a lot of Swiss cheesing, ship rusting from the outside in, that kind of stuff. But the biggest surprise was, again, finding that 90 to 95% of the original of that 1989 hull coating was intact.
Wow.
And then where it wasn't intact is where you expect it to be intact. Not intact was at the wind water line, that high abrasion area, high oxygenated area. And then the other spot was where the ship had rusted from the inside out. I mean, quite literally, the ship rusted from the inside out. It was not outside in. So that told me a couple of things. Is one, the coating system was fantastic, and the CP system worked just fine. We had to keep the water out of the interior of the ship.
People don't understand that either. The immersed hull is usually in very good shape. They had some good coatings and so forth, as long as you're not damaging it. In fact, that's why we don't clean our hull right now. I know you put a different coating system on Texas, which I think is a great idea. That's what I was thinking of long term for us too. But we're leaving the coating alone so that we can actually, in fact, preserve the coating that's underneath it, and the wind and water line is exactly where we're working, and you know all about that too. So,
what's your? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you finish up.
I was going to say, your cofferdaming project is amazing. When I was at ISM, Independent Seaport Museum, I was managing Olympia and Vicuna, and I'd inherited that their cofferdaming project, which is an absolutely brilliant idea. And going through addressing the wind water line and just keeping that up. I mean, you keep the bottoms dry, the inner bottoms dry, and the wind water line up, the ship will last forever. I mean, it really will.
Yeah, and that's the key. What's your biggest worry? Your one worry, Travis, that you have right now? Is there any one item that bothers you? I've got a few myself, but it's all good.
The one thing that bothers me that we weren't able to accomplish in dry dock is we weren't able to get we were able to clean our inner bottom, right? So you get all the accumulated muck and rust that had built up. And then concrete, there was a lot of concrete from concrete salvage patches and concrete cloth that was used to protect the hull in areas where we'd done work. So was getting all of that out. But the one thing that I have concern about, that gives me the largest bit of concern over the long term, until we get to the next dry docking, is that we haven't the coatings in our tanks. One of the things that we wanted to do was actually clean, blast, and paint all of our inner bottom tankage, so that if we did get some water accumulation, whether it was from condensate, whether it was from some seep leaks from the hull, because they do happen. No matter how tight your hull is, you're going to have some kind of seepage. And we just weren't able to do that. We stretched our dollars as far as we could, and they just wouldn't stretch that far. We were able to get some of the more critical areas in the stern of the ship done that has seen a lot of damage over the years. As we did some structural repair, we did do coat the inner bottom of that area, and we were able to get metrics off of that and actually see how expensive that was going to be to try to apply that over the entire inner bottom. And that's something for me that's high on the priority list for the next dry docking. And to be honest with you, it's something that we could probably do while afloat, but that is very, very, I think, cost prohibitive. You're looking at a very high cost to do that. Even if you're not using abrasive blast, you're using a water blast or even a hand tool cleaning. It's still very expensive because it's confined space entry. The access issues. But that's for me. That's a big one over the next. One of the things that I worry about is making sure of that. So of that level of deterioration. So that's one thing we're staying on top of is particularly the water levels. Any accumulation that we're getting in the inner bottom. So far we're not. We've had a few weeps through rivets and seams, and they weeped and then they stopped. So that's kind of the good thing about a riveted hull is they'll weep for a little bit and then they'll kind of rust up within the seam or the joint and stop. So the one true regret that I had in the dry dock, because it was well within our capability, and I didn't think about it until we were probably 2 weeks coming off the blocks, is uh, um, yeah, Ryan and New Jersey stumbled into this backward, a little bit backwards than we did. We thought about it a little bit more organically, which was going through and actually just caulking with a synthetic caulk, marine grade caulk, all of our caulk seams after they've been primed and painted, and we did that. And I wish we were able to do it over a percentage of the hull, and I wish we had done it over the entirety, but we just ran out of time. And in doing this again, if we still have riveted hull that's exposed to the water, we're going to do that 100%. And New Jersey did it because they were actually going back through looking at their primary source documentation and saw that that was what was done in the last Navy dry docking on the ship.
Well, I have some other comments on that. Dick Landgraf was, of course, really. He was in one of the structural guys at Long Beach Naval Shipyard taking care of that, and he taught me a different technique, but it's all good. I think what's our timing here? We're about
Yeah, I think we're.
I have one thing to say, Travis. You're I have huge and genuine respect for you and what you've been doing there. I really do, and appreciate you very much. And just look forward to seeing you. I think I'll stop in. I don't know that I have all the time in the world in September, given all of our projects, but you'll see me for at least a day at Hensa. We'll see how that all goes and how it transpires.
And I got to say, from my perspective too, your videos have been so much fun to watch. You've done a fantastic job, and just being able to see the whole process that you guys have gone through has been wonderful. And keep it coming.
Well, thank you very much, and Mike, coming from you, that means a lot. It really does, and I am truly humbled to hear that. And I have to say, I blush a little bit every time you say that. So, and Marianne, thank you for suffering through our videos and watching them. So. We do our best. I know we have not put out a video in over a year, and at this point, just because we've been so dang busy.
I hear that.
I wish we had, but we are all over the place right now, and we have such a small staff. I mean, our total staff size is 10 right now.
Yep.
And then
I hear you.
And we're
good.
So.
Well, good to see you, and I'll see you here in a few months, if not sooner.
Sounds good, and we're planning to come up to LA and see you guys.
When? Do you have a date?
Not yet. I'm looking to do that probably before the conference. I have a hard date in Houston I have to be back for. So.
Well, if you come up here, don't just be prepared. We're going to make you go on camera again, just because we have you here.
I'll put you to work.
Well, I love it. I love it.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning into Scuttlebutt. As usual, if you have any feedback, comments, questions, topics you'd like us to cover, drop us an email at podcast@labattleship.com, podcast@labattleship.com, or drop something in the comments. We'd love to hear from you, and we will see you next time on Scuttlebutt.